It is never ending. We have another emulation handheld straight out of China. Today, what we got is the Dalai Lama's emulation handheld of choice, the Powkiddy. I hate their name, my God, but this is the RK 2023 because it is the year 2023. So this thing, there's not much information here, but yeah, this name's gotta go. I keep saying it, they need to rebrand. What the hell does that even mean? That sounds stupid, but here it is. We got a white one, I guess. There's a black one as well. So let's check this thing out. See what to do, test out some games, see if it's worth a damn, right? These things just constantly are coming out, man. I don't know. Some people buy every single one. And I don't get it. But we're here reviewing it because maybe, hey, maybe this will be the one for you. But you never know. So what do we got here? USB-C charging cable. A little QC pass. This passed just a few weeks ago. I do like their little guy. Like, just change the name. Keep the little dude that they have on their logo usually. He's all right. Okay. Oh, this ain't a manual. This is a piece of tissue that just tells you some of the functions, like how to exit games. That's about it looks like. And they tell you how to charge. Yeah, there's no specs or anything on this box. I'll find the specs, put it up on the screen. Maybe we'll talk about that a little more in a moment here, but what do we got? This thing, oh my God, there's a little weight to it, but this looks hella cheap, man. But I mean, just look at this thing. It really, like, it has a look of some cheap little handheld that you'd get at Five Below or Pick and Save or the Swap Meet or something with like 620 NES games. Powkiddy's, they're really not known for, you know, being on the cutting edge of, you know, design as far as aesthetics go. This really, it looks cheap, man. But okay, what we got here? You know what? I don't mind when they do the shoulder buttons like that. You know, having the L1, R1 recessed a bit and then the R2, L2 above. That's okay. They feel a little poppy, but not bad. Face buttons, they got a little springiness to them, a little tight. Not the worst. This D-pad, though, what the heck is that? It looks like it's something off of a Fisher-Price toy. I don't know. It feels weird, but we'll have to test it. Dual analogs, Nintendo Switch style. Underneath, 2 micro SD cards, OTG, USB-C, another one for power, headphone jack, speakers down here, at least that's what I'm assuming. Some grill action, nothing on the sides. HDMI out on the top, volume, reset, and power. So let's get this thing powered on. The Powkiddy. Okay, so it looks like this setup, we've got 20,490 games. If you want to change the theme, you can press start, go in the UI settings, and change it. They do have a few different ones here, it looks like, but I'm just going to leave it as is for now. What we got? No favorites. Got some tools, tweaks, okay. Arcade, CPS 1, 2, and 3. Dreamcast got 17 games. Nice, they got the artwork scraped. Famicom Disk System, 5,000. No, that's not right. It's got to be Famicom games. A bunch of like Chinese stuff. Yeah, ROM dump action. Final Burn, Game Boy. I mean, so far it looks clean, the setup that they shipped this with. It did come set up this way. Game Boy Advance, Color, Game Gear, MAME, MSX 1 and 2. Nice. Naomi. Handful of games there. Neo Geo. Nintendo 64. 187, so a little more curated it looks like. DS, 248 games. Wow. Bunch of NES games, so you know they're mixing regions. PlayStation, only 74. That's kind of a good sign. A few box arts missing. PSP, 35. Doesn't look like any minis. 32X, Genesis, Mega Drive. Man. But okay, enough talk about this. Let's just play some games, give you guys my thoughts. So, as always, with this thing, I have recorded a bunch of footage. This, like, boom, just came right back after I played a bunch of games here. But all your 8 and 16-bit stuff is going to play just fine. Your NES, Super Nintendo, your PC Engine, and even arcade stuff is going to be decent on this as well. Your CPS, Neo Geo, all those kind of things ran fine. And I didn't really run into those issues with these, this is kind of a ROM dump, just not as bad as some. But I randomly would pick games, start playing, and everything loaded up just fine. I didn't find anything that didn't boot. But there is over 20,000 games. Ain't nobody got time to test every single one of them here. But so far, that was a good sign. Now, moving on to the more demanding stuff, Dreamcast. It mostly seems to run fine on this device. Really shouldn't have too many issues. They didn't load this up with Dreamcast games. Most of the stuff they included is typically known to run okay. But I did notice with Marvel vs. Capcom 2 that there were some small graphics glitches. Like, some people might not even notice it, but I noticed it because I play this game all the time on numerous devices. And yeah, it didn't like take away from the game. Like, it wasn't where it couldn't be played, but it was just very minor. And I don't normally see that with this chipset. This is an RK3566 setup here, 1 gig of RAM. I put it in the video earlier as an overlay. But yeah, everybody's already done this with this chipset. So I don't know what Powkiddy's thinking here. But yeah, jumping into Marvel vs. Capcom on Naomi, it didn't have the same graphics glitches. But one thing that's kind of common throughout this whole setup here is the button configurations. You can't just buy this and hand it to somebody and it just plays fine as far as the configurations go. Like, yeah, you can play NES, that's fine, but anything that requires more than 2 buttons, it seems like the configurations are all over the place. DS games. There's a bunch of them here, and DS typically doesn't have an issue running. You just got to get accustomed to drastic swapping the screens around. Use the shoulder buttons for that on this setup. And DS ran just fine. Now, I did jump in the PSP. There's a very small selection there, and most of the games that I played ran okay. I didn't really find any issues. There were some games like God of War where they were like either glitchy or too slow, but everything that I, wanted to play besides that seemed to run all right. Now, Nintendo 64 is where things got a little mixed for me, and yeah, it's typically a mixed bag, but here I did want to play some stuff I've normally played, like Wave Race, but it ran slow. It made no sense having these issues. Jumped into some other games that I usually don't test, like Mario Golf was extremely slow. It's just not playable at all. Then you had games like Mortal Kombat 4 and Quake, and they ran well, but the controls were so wonky, it was really difficult to play, especially Quake. Now, I did jump into PS1 because usually that's something I always say you can run on a potato, wired up to a banana, powered off of your mom's Vibe with no issues. But a lot of times these recent handhelds that these companies have been sending me, or consoles, they always put PS1 games that are bad rips or like really compressed and there's no music. But here, there's only like 70-something games, and every one I played had music in it, and they ran just fine. So that's a big plus. They don't have 700 PS1 games here, so they were able to allocate some room for the proper ROMs, right? Now, checking out other stuff like handheld games, all that stuff's going to run just fine. But it looks really good on the screen. That's one of the biggest pros here is the screen looks nice. Playing Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, all that stuff looks great. But overall, it's just a cheap-looking handheld. The D-pad is a little off. I can't get my diagonals proper. The buttons are a little mushy, I don't know how to explain it. Overall, the console looks and feels cheap. For me, the RK 2023 is a big fat-ass pass. Like, come on, Powkiddy, get it together. Thanks for watching. Bye.